We're here at Breakforth in Edmonton, Alberta with MercyMe. I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks. We're glad we're here too.
Now listen, you guys have been recording for a number of years. You come up with these big hits, and I noticed in your last album, Welcome to the New, there was a shift. We talked about this, and it kind of confirmed what I thought. The first time I heard the record, I was like, there's something different going on here. And you've had this, theological, not necessarily a shift, but there's some deep meaning behind what's in Welcome to the New. And now this new album that you've got coming out in March, called Lifer, it's kind of the progression of that record to this. Talk about that. What does that mean?
The main shift is we got session players to play our parts, so it's way better.
Well, musically, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. Step in the right direction. Yeah, there was definitely a shift from Welcome to the New. We, been a band. This year's 23 years we've been in MercyMe, and I kind of grew up in a legalistic church that said Christ was everything, but here's 10 more things you can do just to make sure. And so I was the overachiever, and would try to do enough stuff to where God would see the good more than the bad in me, and just kind of hit a wall. I guess it was after the album Hurt and the Healer, just kingdom work had become the villain that took Daddy away from home, and I could see it, my kids and my wife and even myself having a hard time with just trying to keep a balance, when eventually we realized there's not supposed to be a balance. It's supposed to be family. It's supposed to win hands and down over that and what I'm doing in ministry. And so I was ready to kind of call it quits. I just couldn't do it anymore. And a friend of mine that one of our first church camps we did years ago came kind of back in our lives and reminded me, man, there's nothing you can do to make Christ love you any more than he already does right now. And so maybe you should stop working so hard and actually rest in the finished work of the cross. And I'd never heard anything like that. I've always heard there's more work to be done. And so a couple of years we kind of unpacked that truth of realizing that even on my worst possible day that God's still madly in love with me. And I live my life like I was a bad person trying to be good, when if I have Christ in me, I have the heart and mind of Christ. And so what I actually am is I'm holy, righteous, and redeemed. And so that new perspective changes everything. And a lot less pressure to try to perform, knowing that my performance has nothing to do with it. It's the work that Christ has done. And so even on my off days, I'm okay. And so Welcome to the New, the whole title of that album was, there's a lot of people that have grown up in the church like me that have still not grasped the fact that they are a brand new creation, not brand new when they came into Christ and they took it for granted and messed it up, and now it looks nothing like what they were first given. They remain new because Christ remains in them.
But that album was joyful.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was this new joy, not only musically, but lyrically.
Yeah, because it actually is good news.
Right.
Like before that, it was just like trying to scare the hell out of people.
Right.
But it's actually, the gospel makes the sweetest times that much sweeter. And so that was the point of that record, is that we're welcoming people to this new perspective and reminding them that they're new creations regardless of what they go through. And it's this amazing ability to be able to look at someone, and regardless what they've done, if they know Christ, to see past, the alcoholism or the affair or whatever, and still see them as brother and sister in Christ, you don't bat an eye. You're able to still love them and not allow the things that they've done identify them. Because that's what the church is. That's why we're so good at eating our wounded, because we're bad about identifying by the things they've done, and we separate ourselves. And that's not what the gospel's supposed to be. And so that's what Welcome the New, that's where it came from. And then going into the new album, Lifer, we all had a conversation about okay, this Welcome to New for me personally was like rediscovering fire. I was so excited, and I was all about it, and there was a joy and excitement about everything that had to do with that record, and even playing it live was the same thing. I was like, okay, what happens when the honeymoon phase kind of feels like it's over, the new feels like it's wearing off, when the enemy doesn't let up, and when life just creeps up, and those days
hits you in the face again.
Yeah, the days that honestly just suck.
Right.
What happens when the bottom falls out? And I think it was Mike that was like, man, it feels like we just need to keep reminding them who they are, and just remind them of victory. That that we do have this amazing ability to live like we've read the last page of the book and know how it turns out because of Christ.
You know what I love? You often refer to we. So many people, because you're the lead singer, they assume this is Bart's group, but it's everybody.
It's actually Robbie's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that.
He never talks. He just gives the nod.
He actually does
say
all
right?
the vocals.
Okay, good.
He's got a little microphone back there. He's singing.
If you notice, we'll say something, look at him, he'll go, yeah. He'll go.
Yeah, that was
Good job, boys.
Yeah, way to go. But how has this transformed you guys as a group? This message of love and of hope, how did it change you guys?
I'd say that whole season that he was talking about after hurting the healer and during hurting the healer, I mean, we all go through it together. Like if one of us is hurting, we're all hurting, and we all react to it differently. And maybe I get frustrated with him, or he gets ticked off at me, or whatever. But ultimately, we're kind of in the foxhole together, and we're going through it. And if his family's hurting, my family's hurting, and if his kid's sick, we're all in this together.
Right.
And I think it kind of goes back to what he said about like Christians eating their wounded. It's like, man, the natural consequences of sin, like my own personal struggle with sin, or just fallen world, like those natural consequences are enough. We don't need to beat each other up. We need to see Christ in each other and just encourage that and carry each other, when we're wounded.
Let me ask you this. This transformation, this understanding, and we talked about this a little bit before this interview. I was going through the same thing. When you talked about your process, my wife and I, we had the same, and we were talking about the same guy, Andrew Farley. I mean, the naked gospel and what he brings. Was there somebody in the group that kind of went, guys, I read something. Did somebody bring it to the group and you guys, or was it a process? Was there a catalyst to this discussion as a group? Or was it slowly, how did that happen?
I think the friend of mine I talked about that did our first camp, his name's Rusty. He's the one that he came out on the road with us and kind of explained his own journey he was in a little Baptist church in Indianapolis, and kind of this whole new perspective, the kind of grace and identity got a hold of him, and to where the church actually kind of wanted him to leave because they thought he didn't care about sin anymore.
Right.
He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, because they're, and he was like, I care greatly. I'm just able to still love people that sin. He goes, in fact, the moment you think I don't care, people are confessing more sin to him more than ever because they trust that he's not going to think any different of them and try to get them through it. And and he's the king of reminding people that's not who you are. What you've done is not who you are. I think it's even Paul that even refers to the power of sin and sin as a separate thing in him. This sin that's in me. Mm-hmm. And we just get too wrapped up that is our identity and that we're done for before we ever get started. And so he's the one that came in and kind of shared this perspective with us, and he gave me 2 books, The Naked Gospel, Andrew Farley, and The Cure by John Lynch, and said, you need to read these. And it just kind of the trickle-down effect. If one of us starts reading something, it's not long. I think we were on a trip to like Hawaii or somebody, and some of the guys read it on the way there, and it just, because it hit me like a ton of bricks personally.
It kind of wrecks you.
It does.
Once you hear it.
But then like Nathan, our bass player, is not here. Nathan grew up in more of an environment he's probably more familiar with the grace message than I was, and so there's some things I would say like, can you believe it? He's like, yeah, my dad's told me that for a long time, Like,
how long did it take you?
Yeah. So it was really cool to kind of see from where each of us were coming from and just processing the whole thing. And because it's not Bart says we need to do this, and they're like, great, we're doing this. It's like, right. They have to buy into it. And there was a season where like whether it was Mike going, let me process this, and because it is kind of it will wreck you. It's your entire life of thinking a certain way, and that you have to be good and more than bad, and you've got to do
more.
It's
such a shift.
And it's like, could I be 40 and this thing is it being reset right now? What is happening?
Right.
And it's a little aggravating and it's refreshing all the same time. But yeah, it's like, I think that was the time when I thought I was going to quit the band. And so when all this came in and my buddy's telling me you need to stop what you're doing and rest in the finished work of the cross, I thought that was verification that I'm definitely quitting. I'm out. But the opposite happened. It's like we started falling in love with music like we'd never had before. And not just the music, but the message. It felt like we were just starting again. And so, yeah, even with making this last record, it's like, man, I can't believe we've done it for 23 years because there's no end in sight. I guess, was it Bono that says it's like being in the mafia, the only way out of a band is if you die. So.
If you die.
And we just don't like hard labor. That's what it comes down to.
No, I understand. Yeah. I understand. We need soft hands.
Yes, that's so true.
Right. But this message that Andrew Farley has in The Naked Gospel, that you guys started this process on Welcome to the New, it can be misunderstood so easily. Mm-hmm. You guys, it's a license to sin. You guys, nobody cares. Right. And so the opposite. You're being wooed by love.
Yeah.
The love of our Creator calls us to be better.
Right.
Yeah. The whole grace thing can be misunderstood. So that's got to be something as you're doing the lyrics, to have these guys to bounce these ideas off. Is this landing right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there is definitely a fine line between, we'll have people like kind of the whole prosperity gospel that'll be like, oh man, we're right with you. I'm like, no, you're not.
No,
I'm not. I'm nowhere near that. Don't
Yeah.
agree. There's no biblical, scripture to back that up. But it's easy to twist. Scripture is really easy to twist it to work in your favor.
Yep.
We'll get people all the time like, I'm right there with you, and we're like, oh, I just feel like the jerk. It's like, no, you're not. It's not. It can get lopsided either way, and it's just it is. And so we try to treat the word with respect and try to be as true as we possibly can, and that's why more than any record I've ever been a part of, we had so many guys that were kind of pouring into it and keeping me in check and saying, yeah, if this is what you're trying to say, then that's right, and so it was a cool process. It was a long process, but it was cool.
But you know what? I'm so glad you're doing that, because I want you to know, I'll speak as a fan for a minute. I put on Welcome to the New. I couldn't stop listening to it. I had chills. There was this deep moment where I went, God's speaking to me. And I'm so excited to hear Lifer, because if it's Welcome to the New 2.0, I think it's going to take us to a place we need to be. And that's a challenge to the church, and you're going to have a lot of feedback that's going to be positive and going to be negative, but I think you're taking us in a good place.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the plan.
It's a little nerve-wracking because, like you said, Welcome to the New was kind of a resurgence for us spiritually, musically, whatever, but like our fans really took to it as well. I mean, it really connected, like you're saying. And so now there's this we feel like this is great. I hope that it connects. Even just half of what Welcome to the New did, it'll be really special.
Well, you know what? You guys are bringing something incredibly special to the contemporary Christian music scene, and it resonates with people that haven't found out who Jesus is yet. And I love that. And your music's great. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, our pleasure.
March 31st.
Soft hands.
Lifer gets released. Please check it out. Find out who Mercy Me is. Go to their website. Go to iTunes, download it, find it right away. We want to make sure that you get this in your hands. You're going to love this music.